What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Insight motherfucking 11, man. And I got another video today for you talking about being yourself, right? Be yourself and refine through experiences versus the act of trying to copy someone else's character in order to reap the same benefits and reward or positivity that another person maybe reaping just based upon them being strong to put themselves in that spotlight, right? Because a lot of people may try to do that just based upon a lot of the celebrities, aka the celebrated minds that are on earth and stuff like that, that a person may try to copy and mimic the idea of going about life just based upon them, not necessarily wanting to go through certain experiences, both positive and negative, in order to refine their character and who they are, right? Because it's a lot easier to go out there and be like, hey, I want to be Andrew Tate, or hey, I want to be Alex Jones, or I want to be Barack Obama, or I want to be George Bush, or whoever a person may exalt as a character that they want to reach to. And a person may follow that route and shit like that, try to go through the journey of how a person became that. But here's the thing though, right? You can go through your own journey, right? Your own journey of both positive and negatives as experiences and stuff like that, as long as the person is not necessarily scared of these things. Because what that's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to develop your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own feelings about how to come at these things, but from just your own space, your own perspective. And whatever God has for you, whatever the universe, whatever all possibilities has for you, might be something entirely new that the world might actually need to see. Because, we live in a world that's very, synthetic, where people use other people's thoughts, other people's feelings. And we're going to get to that because there's nothing really wrong with using someone else's thoughts, someone else's feeling, looking at someone else's awareness that they share and shit like that in order to expand and, comprehend more further things. Because when you understand the 11th house of associations, because, there's a lot of these air houses, like the 11th house, your associates and, your third house, your friends and your environment, or your 7th house, who you have a relationship with, right? We all are able to influence each other, but yet understand that birds of the same feather flock together and shit like that, whatever the saying is, right? So there's a lot of, let's just say, spirits on earth that want to copy someone else's character, but are kind of afraid to go through the things that character may have went through to even get to that point. Because it's all about just gaining experience points. And this way, you know what's right or wrong for you. Because what's right or wrong for you, what's right for you may not be right for me. What's wrong for me might be what's right for you type shit. So you gotta really know yourself, and you gotta really know your own natures, because these are the aspects, characteristics that you're gonna jump into. These are gonna be your chakra wheels that you jump into. Your alignments this is gonna be how you align, perceive certain things and shit like that, right? So you gotta use these things for your benefit just by knowing yourself and stuff like that. The moment you try to jump into someone else's nature, someone else's characteristics, you're not gonna be able to do that as well as them, because that's them coming from their own space, that's them coming from their own angle, that's them coming from their own perspective and shit like that, right? And shit like that. But yeah, I got some shit written down right now that I want to go through. This way we can, fully go through this and understand it on a deeply comprehended level and shit like that, right? So a lot of the times, spirits may not act or be or come from the space of their own nature, right? Your personal aspects and characteristics, just due to being a witness of another character that's more refined, that's shining more light, receiving more light, praise and stuff like that, gets a lot of attention. Hence the 5th house, right? The 5th house of Leo represents our character, and this, right? Because the 5th house represents our character, how we shine a light to the world and shit like that. And it can also represent just the praise, how you're entertained. Do others entertain you? Do others not entertain you? And if others don't entertain you, that means okay, a person might have to sit back and work on their character and stuff like that. But character is something that's developed over time, not something that you can instantly get to and, hope that, okay, if I act like this influencer, if I be like this person, then I might be able to step into the same shoes or step into the same type of experiences that they're experiencing or stuff like that, right? So it's like you can avoid all that if you just work on your own experiences, but you got to be willing to go through the both positive and both negative, because both energies make up life and shit like that, right? If you want to get into science, stuff like that, y'all know positive, negative charges and shit like that. All that shit is a normal part of life. So it's not negative as in negative, it's bad. Negativity is just kind of almost learning okay, what's not for you and stuff like that. Because it's everyone is coming from their own subjectivity. Everyone is subjective. And it's what's subjective to you might be completely different to what's subjective to someone else and stuff like that. But each other's attributes and characteristics, aspects may help each other build each other up type shit. So it's not like bad, but at the same time though, you gotta be aware to really just be an individual and be who you are and shit like that, right? Because that's like a character, that's an attribute of courage. Like if a person lack courage, a person is not gonna shine their light on the world, where a person might have to work on their solar plexus energy, because a person might lack the ability to take action and shit like that. And your actions is gonna be done from your own point of view. Whatever viewpoints you represent, these are things that have to do with you, not necessarily like other people and shit like that. So it's like it's truly unique to you, and you can try to act out someone else's viewpoint nature, but that's you're not coming from that. So you can't produce these same thoughts and feelings where a person may be operating from a synthetic thought and feeling, hence like the whole idea of a non-player character, and all that shit. So you don't need to be that if you just know yourself and just go through certain things to develop yourself and stuff like that, right? Because that within itself is admirable. That within itself is courage. That within itself demonstrates a virtue and a principle that a person can do and shit like that, right? But a lot of the times spirits may be lazy, maybe like not wanting to go through these things just based upon these things being already presented in the public. And people think, okay, I need to act this way, behave this way, because this is what everyone around us is doing. Because so the most part, everyone really is like a non-player character. Everyone is really just like a bot type shit. Everyone else basically is being a sheep, being a follower type energy, rather than just creating their own ways. So this way you can sit back and be like, hey, I know the way. And then it's like, you can replicate and duplicate certain things in your life just based upon being like one of a kind versus trying to be like someone else's kind type shit. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so the sun sign represents a spirit's viewpoints and actions, wants, or just the nature that they shine forth, right? So just keep in mind that the refined character of someone else is them acting in their own nature, right? Plus, they went through a bunch of experiences to get to that point. Because if you want, let's say you go take a walk in the park, right? To get from point A to point B, you gotta take a walk and shit like that. So for you to get to point A to point B, you gotta go through something in some way, shape, or form, and it's gonna be unknown. So don't be afraid of the uncomfortability that come with it, because it's kind of like the universe almost testing you to see, okay, can this person handle this experience? And if you can, then your spirit will your wheels will start to spin. This way you can start to develop new thoughts and feelings about it, as long as you don't perceive that negative as, oh, this must mean that I'm bad, this must mean like I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. Because a person a lot of the times may attack themselves just based upon their conceived self-perception and stuff like that, whatever image they choose to conceive themselves as and shit like that, right? So you don't want to like conceive yourself as like bad, because ain't nobody bad or good. Bad is just like negative, it's just your own subjectivity and shit like that. So you want to make sure you're coming from your own subjective space and shit like that, because that's how you personally create and shit like that. And a lot of the time in astrology, that has to do with your moon sign, what you're comfortable with, your needs and shit like that. And that's what allow you to create your reality with your sun sign, your actions and your viewpoints. So you got to act out your own nature, because that's who you are and shit like that. The moment you try to do someone else's, you're not going to do it as sufficiently, and you're not going to be able to act or do it the way they do it, because that's just who they are. So it's natural to them. What's natural to you is natural to you. It's intrinsic to you. It's literally like, it's just who you are and shit like that. But you got to be careful with the word who you are, because a lot of the times who someone bases they self-identity with might just be a lot of negative shit that they attribute to themselves. Like a person might believe they lack confidence. A person may believe that they ain't shit. A person might be told a lot of things when they're young, that they self-conceive this identity of themselves through, that they play out in the world through behaviors and patterns and stuff like that they express outwardly and shit like that. But you gotta understand that that's just the mind that a person may be in right now, and it's not for the forever end all be all. And you have the ability, you have the access to let go of these thoughts and feelings that may be limiting, aka limiting self-beliefs and stuff like that, a limiting belief system and shit like that may prevent a person from really going for those things that they want to go for, and being strong enough to endure these experiences. This way the universe looks at you like, you know what, this person can handle a bunch of shit. We keep throwing a bunch of rocks at this motherfucker, he can still go through it. So the universe is like, damn, that's a bad motherfucker right there. And it's like, It's all types of like, I'm not gonna get into that necessarily because I want to focus on the topic and shit like that. But it's really a lot of spirits in the unseen realm that can like jump into your vehicle, jump into your mind to give you more thoughts and feelings about how to go about that better and shit like that. But if you don't go through it, then you'll never really resonate with these strong spirits. A person may never really resonate with these strong beings that are out here that can assist them go through that and shit like that, or just do it in a better way. Because a lot of times a person might already resonate with something on a deep subconscious level that they might not know about, that's actually causing them to play out that energy of being a copycat and shit like that. So that's not a space that a person has to be in. That's a space that a person may choose to be in just based upon whatever it is that they have on their mind and shit like that, right? Yeah. So it's like, let's let me get back into this. So just keep in mind that the refund. So okay, we went through that. Is them acting out their own natures. Plus, they went through a bunch of experiences to get to that point. Now, if a person is copying someone else's character, that person might not know themselves. A person may have an insecurity on a deep subconscious level that to the point that they want to get something outside, to the point that they think they have to go to the external world to get that form of mental resource, right? Because that's a characteristic too. Being resourceful yourself is like an attractive characteristic with that, where you know how to be resourceful. You don't need an external source based upon you knowing how to deal with that internal insecurity, to turn that insecurity and make it into a new security, to take that vulnerability, deal with it, and make it burn in the ashes and you birth like a phoenix and stuff like that. This way you're going through that Scorpio transformation energy, rebirthing yourself, rather than staying in that same mental bag that a person may use to blind themselves from what's possible, what's impossible, just based upon a lot of the times the stuff that they was invalidated for and the stuff that they was validated for and stuff like that, right? So a person might try to use someone else's character, someone else's spotlight, just to jump and try to skip and try to go over these insecurities, not realizing these are energetic energies, beings that live within the state of beings, that a person has to go through certain experiences and be strong enough through it to develop their own way of going about it, right? It's just a self-measurement a lot of the times, right? Well, hold on, gotta go back. It takes a strong spirit to do that. Strong and weak is just a self-measurement based upon one's own beliefs and how they view themselves. So if a spirit put itself in a negative light, it might subconsciously seek out shelter in someone else's light, spotlight, awareness, right? For whatever circumstance, situation that they may not know how to go about and stuff like that, right? That they create a limit on not knowing how to go about that or perceive it, right? And we're going to get into why that's not actually a bad thing at the same time, but it's got to be a balance between that, because, but we're going to get into it. So awareness itself is not a bad thing, right? Because there's a lot of people here that can make you aware of more things and shit like that, right? So it's not a bad thing, but we all help each other and shit, right? But there is a lot of people that can help a mind deal with whatever they're dealing with. And it's an ecosystem of minds, because we're all in an ecosystem of minds and stuff like that, right? And we all give and receive energies. So it's natural and it's not a bad thing. Just be aware that these are not your thoughts and feelings, and a person's chakras that's copying other people wasn't the one expanding and contracting to even go through down that route to get rid of certain thoughts and feelings, to expand into a new space of thoughts and feelings and stuff like that, right? To get to that point. So they probably more so on the receiving end based upon whatever spirit may have, based upon whatever that spirit may have accumulated as a mind that can play as a mental blockage and stuff like that, right? Whatever they're fixated on the wrong mentality. That do not allow them to achieve the results of whatever the character outside of them is doing. But what that person is doing is just acting out in their own natures and going through experiences, both positive and negative, all the time. Even the person that a person might sit back and admire is going through positive and negative experiences all the time. And you see them going through these things, and that's normal. But they can handle these things. That's what the universe put them in that position, because they can see, okay, this person can handle this shit, so let me put them in a bigger position, right? Because they can do more and be more and handle more. Where it's like going to the mental gym, right? Where it's like going to the gym, right? The more weights you lift, the more weights you can handle, right? By going through that experience of lifting. This way you can expand your muscular system, strengthen your muscles to handle more load and stuff like that, right? But if a person is like lazy, doesn't want to go through, deal with any type of like mental load both positive and negative, then they're not going to necessarily like expand their mind to the point that they develop more awareness about whatever it is that you're trying to deal with. Like both positive and negative experiences is actually good. It's actually healthy. It's actually positive for you, and it's actually helping you develop mental strength, resilience, determination, and that within itself is an attribute, a characteristic that a person may need and shit like that, right? Right? So yeah, it's like awareness itself is not a bad thing. We all help each other out. We can all help each other become aware of more things, especially if it's like a bigger spirit that you're talking to and shit that you're interacting with. It can help you become more aware of more things and shit like that. So it's not necessarily bad, but at the same time though, you can really take on so much of that to the point that like you start to think or blind yourself by someone else's light, someone else's awareness, someone else's shine, and stuff like that, to the point that like you might just not really be yourself and try to act out and be in someone else's light, to the point that it just creates this like follower energy. What's better than the follower energy is just really the student energy, because there's nothing wrong with being a student. There's nothing wrong with looking at someone else's understanding and stuff like that. This way you can sharpen your own understanding, but it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, let me go be like this person, let me dress like this person, let me smell like this person. In fact, shit, because it play out in so many different ways. Like a person might hate themselves so much they might not even want to be themselves and shit like that. And self-hatred play out in so many different ways. It can even play out in a racial way, where if a person hate themselves, they might not even want to be that race and shit like that. And I'm not saying play out a culture, play out a religion, play out a country's ideology, methodology, but what I am saying is, what's it called? Just like do it from your own perspective, not get lost in someone else's perspective. Because a lot of the times, look, people might even be lost in step of bias and you might cater and take onto that bias. A person might cater to that bias just based upon whatever bias they're in and shit like that. So people might do a lot of things just to like not deal with their own insecurities and shit like that, rather than just dealing with these things. But if a person deal with these things, then they'll be able to expand out of that. They'll be in a much more bigger, healthier space just by dealing with that and shit like that, right? So it's like, yeah. But what that person is doing is acting out to remember, but you know, I already went through all this shit, but I'm gonna read it anyways. Receive. So just be aware that these are not your thoughts and feelings, and a person's chakras wasn't expanding and contracting. Because when I say a chakra, it's like the example of going to the gym, right? The muscular system is a chakra that represents the Sagittarius energy and shit like that, of expanding and contracting, travel and adventure and stuff like that, right? So if a person is not sitting back and expanding and contracting their own chakra through experiences and shit like that, then it's like you're not going to be aware. You're not going to develop that awareness, that larger sphere of knowing, that larger sphere of awareness and shit like that, to actually be able to be comprehended about the world and this reality around you, to know how to go about certain things from your own unique perspective and stuff like that, right? So they're probably more so on the receiving end, based on whatever spirit they may have accumulated as a mind, based on whatever they may have accumulated on the mind, that can play out as mental blockages, where it's just a self-delusion of being stuck and being fixated on the wrong mentality that do not allow them to achieve the results of whatever the character outside of them is doing. But what that person is doing is just acting out of their own natures and going through experiences, both positive and negative, to refine themselves, where a person that's copying someone else's character may not or want to avoid it based upon their perception of what negative is, like I said earlier, right? But that's how you build yourself up, right? The less you can handle, right? Like I said earlier, the less you can handle of that role, and that person that a spirit follows might have a bias. Anyways, I already said all this shit. I already went through this shit. I'm just regurgitating it at this point because I already knew it on my mind and shit like that. But yeah, like, there's no need to be afraid of these positive and negative experiences, because it's just what's helping you build. When you get to a positive, you have to go through a negative. Like, if you ask any salesperson, they have to go through a bunch of no's to even get to that yes and shit like that. So whatever a person may be looking as a yes for, a yes might just be like, yeah, everybody, look at me as a good character. But that required not caring about what anyone else thinks. It's kind of like ironic that a person would follow someone else's character and shit like that and try to act that out, because that person might care about what that person think about them. So they might think, okay, I need to play this out and shit like that, right? But that's odd within itself, because it requires you not to care about what someone else think about you, right? Because it comes with certain things. Like that person is dealing with certain negatives, dealing with certain positives. And if you try to play that out, you're gonna have to deal with those same things they deal with. But those are things that they can't deal with and shit like that, right? So it's really interesting. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today, everybody. You know, enjoy your Sunday. Peace out. I'm gonna see y'all motherfucker tomorrow. Just be yourself and go through the negatives and positives. This way you can develop your own unique character about these things, right? Because it's like, it's three energies that a person really need to go through, right? Like a person needs to go through the North Node, being uncomfortable, going through what is perceived to be unfamiliar circumstances, situation, aka the unknown, and usually based upon a person's psychological conditioning, the mind may not necessarily want to go through that just because, like, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's just unfamiliar. So the mind automatically doesn't like that, so don't want to go through that. But yet, that's the same thing that a person has to go through to, you know, develop better thoughts and feelings about it. Where a lot of the times, people might build up so many thoughts and feelings about what life is already to the point that they're not open enough to, you know, play these things out. And that's where clearing a lot of your energies, clairvoyance comes in, because a person has to get rid of a lot of these throat chakra blockages. Like a person may not even know how to fucking speak, to the point that a person might want to look for a script, ask ChatGPT to make them a script for something. Like it get really crazy because it's really people are here in need because they have certain blockages and stuff like that, right? But anyways, I'm gonna go through the rest of the energies, where a person might even need to go through the energy of your anus, being rebelling, being opposing a little bit when it comes to how people normally go about something. Because the opposite of rebelling and opposing is just uniqueness and originality. So when you know how to rebel and oppose in the right way, in the right percentage level, you start to develop your own originality, your own uniqueness in that area. And that within itself is a certain form of like riches, where you become energetically, vibrationally, frequency rich. So you have some form of resource to exchange with the world for whatever it is a person might want to experience, you know, that they may not know how to do unless it's through someone else's character and shit like that, right? And then you also Pluto, being able to take power and control and transform, like I said earlier, talking about the Scorpio energy, where a person has to learn to go through transformation, go through some form of death, mentally speaking, to shed a lot of these lights and awarenesses. Just like how snakes shed their skin, the mind is a skin that a lot of the times a person may need to skin. This way they can see things through a new light and not necessarily be stuck in these old lights awarenesses, where it's not even really seeing things in a new light. You could say it's that, but it's really just letting go of these thoughts and feelings. This way, you're just looking at life as it is, because people don't look at life as it is and shit like that. But yeah, that's all I had to say. That's all I had to say for today, folks. I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow. Peace out. Have a fucking lovely day, because every day is lovely if you make it so. Peace.